Now, like many of you might have this same situation, I bought this shirt for about $9 at a department store, and this is exactly the times where I don't want to really invest too much money into it because I bought it so cheap. So since I have a machine, I'm just going to do it myself. So if you have a machine, you can follow at home with just your basic knowledge of how to sew. And if you don't know how to sew, just please check some of the other videos that I have created in the past, kind of get a refresher course. But if you are up to par, we're going to start with the first step, which is marking your shirt.
Really simple, guys. Try the shirt on and pin where you want it to come in. No brainer, right? If you have a friend, I do highly suggest you enlist them to come help you do this because it can be a little bit tricky trying to find out how you want this to fit while you're twisting and turning and not standing naturally. But make sure that if you need the sleeves, you go down the sleeves. If you're just doing the body, do the body. But also make sure you do both sides of the shirt because you don't want to overcompensate on one side and make it look really bad. So do both sides and take your time.
So now over to your ironing board, or in my case, just a bench with a bath towel on it. Or sorry, just getting some cords out of the way for my microphone. You're going to find the sides that you pinned, like right here. And you're just going to measure the amount that you plan on taking in. So you just lay it out flat like this. So I'm going to be taking an inch off this edge, and that's right in the middle. Usually you want to measure both sides just to make sure that you are exactly right with just 1 inch. Perfect. It's measuring the same. And that's exactly why you want to make sure that you measure both sides instead of just one side, because you can take in too much on one side. And then the arms. And we're just going to taper it all the way into the end seam. Now we want to take out our pins. Turn your shirt inside out. So we're just going to pick one side. Actually, where we're going to start at is up by the sleeve. Now this is what you call a flat felt seam, and as you can see here, it is double stitched on both sides. Now we can recreate that, but for these purposes it's not really necessary, so all we're going to do is just tack right into there, and we're going to do a single stitch on the top. Make sure you have one of these. This is going to be huge as far as being able to do this part here. So as you can see, there's this little lip right here, and this part is just flat. You want to find the stitching on this lip. You're going to take it off right at the base of the cuff. Now these stitches on here most of the time are what we call a chain stitch. So it's just the way the machine stitches it. And what we're going to do is we're just going to pick right in here, and it's going to be able to start to unravel just like that. So you want to be very careful that you don't go and pull the whole thing, because it's not going to mess it up too much, but you still want to make sure that you're keeping it controlled. So let's go up about 2.5 inches, which is right here. And actually, if you look at this, the company missed the stitching in the first place. So way to go. I think this is Kohl's, but we're just going to go right up into where they missed it already. We're going to hurry up and snip this part so it doesn't unravel too far on us. Just like that. I'm gonna have that opened like so. Now you're ready for pressing. One last thing I would like to mention about these stitches is one side, when you take it off, it's going to unwind up this way. The other way, it's going to go the reverse side. So remember that. So if you pick one and it doesn't seem to want to pull, try and start from the top and pull down. So you're going to take this seam you just opened. So it was originally like this. You're going to press this flap open like this. And the rest of this, you're just going to take that whole seam, you're going to roll it just like so. So that both this flat felt seam, both stitches are on one side, and you're creasing it on the fold. You're gonna do this all the way down the shirt. Now, if the sleeves on your shirt actually fit you pretty well, which in my case happens a good bit, or if you're just super jacked, which I am not, and they fit well, but sometimes you will get it off the rack fitting well in the sleeves. And what you're gonna do is repeat that same process that we did on the cuff of the shirt, and you're just gonna do it right underneath the armpit, and you're gonna take it in the body and taper it into the armpit. But since that's just a variation of this, I'm gonna show you the long form, and I need to take it in all the way through the sleeve. So there you have it. You have it nice and pressed, ready for marking. Also guys, when you're using an iron in a tailor's chalk, do not iron on top, because trust me, it is a smell you do not want to have to live with. So find roughly about where the center point is. You can also measure it. This one measures about 16. So half of 16 is gonna be 8. This is gonna be right here, is gonna be the center of the body. And remember, our mark was an inch. It would help if I actually did it on the right side though, just like this. I'll mark that. Now down at the bottom, I usually like to taper it out, so we're gonna go around 3/4 of an inch. And you can either use a roller, which I would suggest if this is your first time, but for me, just because I've done it so many times, I like to freehand it and kind of recreate that kind of curve in the body. Because I have a bigger butt than I do waist. So I'm gonna recreate that, but do not hesitate to use the roller and just add your curves later. It's very important you get this right. So pretty much what we have here is we are just marking the measurements that we took off of the pins, and we're just pretty much playing a big game of connect the dots, and we're going all the way through into the arm.
Now, with the markings done, with your machine set up, you're just going to start up in that little seam that you pressed out in the beginning, putting your needle right in between the seam, stitching in the ditch as we call it. Lower the presser foot down, hand wind the needle in, and then when you start off, you're going to want to do a back tack to allow the stitch not to come undone later down the road. And as far as those who have complicated settings on their machine, all we're going to be doing is setting it up so that there is a 2-inch length, 0 width because it's a straight stitch, and that's it. And if the markings are right that you did on the shirt, you're just going to follow them the entire way down. And then you get to the end, do a back tack, all is said and done.
So you've tried it on, you know that it fits well. Now you're gonna get to the finishing stages. The shirt completely unbuttoned, you're gonna find each seam, which shouldn't be too hard, there's only 2 of them, and you're going to press them down flat. Now, if you have more than like an inch or so being taken in, I would recommend cutting off this fabric and then zigzagging the edge so that it doesn't fray. Since you'll be taking it in only this much on each side, there's really no need to cut it, and I think it looks more professional on the inside without the zigzag and the homemade looking finish. But you can do so if you would like. All you're gonna do is leave about 1/2 inch to 3/8 on the edge all the way across the seam, and then run it through your machine on a zigzag stitch and do that, and then press it over. But for me, this is totally fine, and it's more about what the outside looks like than the inside. So now what we're going to do is we're going to press down the seam. Now I start with the sleeve of the shirt. You can see where the seam is already folded for the flat felt seam. So if we press it this way, it's going to be weird at the cuff. So you want to make sure you press it all over to that one side. Now, if you're the type of person that this is totally fine for you, cool beans, you're done, all is well, and you can wear your shirt just like this. But if you want to give it a nice little bit of an aesthetic finish and a stronger seam, what we're going to do is we're going to go over this with a top stitch, just right along here. That's going to finish it off real nice. Also, I will mention, if you only took in the body and tapered it into the sleeve, I would recommend doing this top stitch part so that it kind of matches with the flat felt seam that is still on the sleeve.
So to achieve this aesthetic top stitch, find which way the seam is pressed, and you're going to want to sew over that to keep that part of the fabric down. Get your needle kind of set up the same way that you did for the first seam, and you're just going to be doing it on the top. Also, make sure that the stitching matches very well here because it will be visible. Something also I didn't really think through too much doing this first part is stop the stitching before you get into the sleeve. As you can see here, I try very hard to get it down the entire sleeve of the shirt, and although I do, it was way more work than it was worth, and it ended up looking pretty crappy afterwards. And there you have it, the finished product. As you can see, definitely a lot slimmer through the body, going down to the bottom, not too much. We got that nice taper in there. Sleeves look good. Back is kind of cleaned up. If anything, I'd let it out a little bit more at the hips. But here it was in contrast. You can see it's a lot fuller. Sleeves don't look too bad actually, but the body, as you can tell, way better.
Guys, this is all-inclusive shirt tailoring tutorial. If you liked it, please let me know. If not, also please let me know. And if you have any other comments or suggestions, please put those in the comment section underneath this video so that I know how to make better videos or how to make these videos better for you. Also, if you did enjoy this or know someone who could learn from this, share, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm gonna let you do whatever you need to, but thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate your viewership, and have a great day.